I can't start anywhere but the Heat last night. We saw, in my opinion, prime, stubborn Spo.
Mm-hmm.
And I warned you during yesterday's show. We had Clay Ferrero on. I warned you, you're going to get the stubborn Spo. Duncan Robinson, the game before against Atlanta, gave you 17 minutes, quality minutes.
Yeah.
How many did he score? 14 points?
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Yes.
14 points in 17 minutes and looked good doing it. 3 of 4 from 3. They needed threes last night. Spo doesn't put him in for a single minute.
You called
and
it.
That to me is peak stubborn Spo. And I called it because Spo won. It didn't matter what happened in that game. He knew going in he wasn't going to play Duncan Robinson because everyone loved the way Duncan looked. And there's people on Twitter, part of Heat Nation, going, listen, if you think Duncan Robinson or Omer Yurtsevin are the difference between winning or losing, you're crazy. That's fine. But if it is as simple as what we've talked about, which is making 3-point shots, which they could not make last night, why wouldn't you go with the guy who had seemingly a hot hand for 2 games? Yeah. Got 6 minutes of junk time against, was it against Atlanta, the first game? Is that when Duncan came in?
Yes.
And then 17 minutes, 14 points, 3 of 4 from 3. And you need it again last night. And because he's not out there, you end up with a terrible shot by Victor Oladipo at the end. You end up with a terrible 3 from Max Strus at the very end. And I'm sorry, Duncan Robinson could have been useful in that game. Wow, 305 already.
It's 305. Dale.
God bless.
Dale.
Thank you, Jimmy. 305, sponsored by Anna Jar Levine. Accident Attorneys. Call 1-800-747-FREE. That's 1-800-747-3733. I'm just telling you, Duncan Robinson could have been useful in that game.
Oh, I believe if Spo breaks down a game and gets ready for the following game, or with these back-to-backs, he's watching the prior game they played, and he looks and says, okay, this guy's a good matchup for this guy. This defense they run, we need to run this set. And he has his set pieces, his weapons as a coach has in their arsenal. He has his weapons that do that job. Obviously, you think being stubborn where he's, because everybody's excited. I don't think it's everybody's excited. I think, Hawk, is that his pros, speaking of Duncan now, his pros do not outweigh his cons. As a coach, as a dude that coaches, as a guy that's been coached by some of the greats, he has too many flaws that your three-point shooting that you talk about is not worth it to Spo.
But it's, to me, it's a crazy notion, though, because A, when he played 17 minutes, they won, okay? B, when he was in the starting lineup, they ended up going to the Eastern Conference Finals. Like, to me, you've got data that shows you he's good when he's out there and when he's playing at a high level. Again, I'm not telling you Duncan Robinson needs to start. I'm telling you he gave you 17 good minutes. And when I say he's stubborn, listen, I complain all the time about baseball managers. When you talk about having your plan going into a game, baseball managers do it all the time. You'll see a hot pitcher out there, but because it's the 7th inning, it is time for the setup man. And it doesn't matter how hot the pitcher is. Doesn't even matter if he's thrown 15 pitches less than you thought he'd throw at that point. They go with the setup man, and you end up ruining things. I don't understand how you come out of that game against Atlanta where Duncan did what you want Duncan to do. It's the reason he's on the team for the amount of money that he's getting. He did what he needed to do. How do you come out of that game and not play him a minute? How do you come out of that game and not give him 1 minute on the court?
Well, no. The one, like him not playing at all is troubling. Because even though, we joked about it, I said, what Duncan needs to play with, we were talking about mid-teens. He gets to that 15, 17 mark. Okay, he's not playing 30 minutes. But when do you take him out? And then we were joking about it. Hey, he goes out there and goes 0 for 2, his ass is on the bench. But to not give him a chance to see if he was shooting, That's the reason why, Hawk, you have to look for something else. Spo's a Hall of Fame coach. He's not dumb.
No doubt.
So that's why I'm looking for something else, is to where there has to be something.
Though.
But Hawk, there has to be something so bad with Duncan's. Why would a coach not put his most advantageous team on the court?
So you're telling me something between the Atlanta game and the Cleveland game happened with Duncan Robinson that was so egregious he couldn't get back out on the court?
Not so egregious is that he's just using him as an ancillary piece.
But he wasn't an ancillary piece against Atlanta, is my point.
Was.
And so
17 minutes is an ancillary piece, Hawk. 17 minutes.
Not when you put up 14 points in 17 minutes and the game wasn't out of hand. Like, he was more than an ancillary piece against Atlanta.
Okay. But to that point exactly, you're looking at him, and then he stepped up and played his way out of ancillary piecehood. But did Spo take him out of that section in his mind? Of this is just a guy I need to put in every now and again.
But fine, play him as an ancillary piece. If you're telling me ancillary piece means 17 minutes, I'll take that. Like that's what I'm saying. To me, it was the epitome. I'm with you. Spo is a Hall of Fame coach. I love Spo. I got no problem with him. I want him to be the coach for the Miami Heat for as long as he wants to be. I am telling you, his biggest detriment has always been that he's stubborn. He gets locked into certain rotation. We saw it at the beginning of the year with Jimmy Butler, right? He's like, he almost acknowledged it, but he lets Jimmy sit on the bench sometimes too long when things start to get out of hand. But he's got this rotation in his mind of when he's supposed to come back in. I think his biggest flaw is his stubbornness. And I think you saw it again last night. And the only reason I bring it up is because obviously I'm a Duncan Robinson fan. I went all in on Duncan Robinson. He did what he needed to do in that Atlanta game. You tell me, Solana, you watch every single game. You do pre-heat and post-heat. Why did Duncan get 0 minutes in a game that they needed 3-pointers on when he's 4 of 5, I believe, from 3 in the last 2 games?
I know you don't want to hear this, but Duncan played 17 minutes the other night because Kevin Love was out. I told you, Kevin Love, the second he returns to the starting lineup, it probably means Duncan Robinson is going to be squeezed out of the rotation again, and that's exactly what happened. I also don't think it helped last night that Bam Adebayo got into foul trouble very early, and Cody Zeller had to come in. You can't have Cody Zeller playing 19 minutes and find minutes for Duncan for those two to play at the same time, considering the matchup you're going against. I think that's right now where you're totally missing the mark on Duncan. I'm with you. I would have liked to have seen him a little bit last night too, but matchups matter. Who you're going against matters. You're going against 2 elite isolation guards in Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell, and then a bunch of long, versatile wing players who can all put the ball on the floor and make good decisions against the Cavs. Duncan is a terrible defensive matchup when you set it up that way, and that's why yesterday, adding on to the fact that Bam was in foul trouble, Duncan didn't get into the game because you need Bam and Duncan on the floor at the same time to make it work, and Bam couldn't even play 30 minutes yesterday.
That falls into my argument, though, sometimes where I go, they're so worried about defense that they forget you also have to put up points. And when Duncan was out there against Atlanta, and again, I'm not making the argument that he's a defensive specialist because he's not. He's going to get exploited by good teams. But when you need points and you're not hitting 3-pointers, you've got to find a way to get him out there. Period. End of story. And I understand what you're saying. Kevin Love comes back into the lineup. There's another piece who's going to get time before Duncan Robinson. Like, I get it. I understand that. All I'm saying is find a way to get him out on the floor. He means too much when he's shooting lights out basketball. He means too much to you when he's out there to just have him riding the bench because you've had him riding the bench since he's come back from his injury. I just think it's a flaw in Spo's system.
The question to your point, the question that really needs to be answered is we're putting it, because you're just doing it right now, 4 for 5 over the last 2 games from 3-point line, 17 minutes, 14 points. You're putting these numbers that are impressive to us, and they are from Duncan. But what does Spo need to see? What does he have to do to get Spo, like you said, to put him in that rotation in his mind? Because obviously he has not done enough for Spo to think about him.
Yeah, but how could he see? How could he see anything?
That's what I'm saying. Because 17 minutes, 14 points didn't even get him 1 minute the following game. So Spo was not impressed by that.
Well, I mean, that's ridiculous then. I mean, if Spo didn't like the minutes that he got from Duncan the game against Atlanta, then I'm off the Spo train because that would be ridiculous.
He put Kevin Love in. To Solana's point, Duncan did that. Kevin's back healthy. Kevin's in the game. Duncan's down there without his shoes tied.
Over Duncan Robinson. I'm not making that argument. All I'm saying is if you couldn't find 12 minutes for Duncan Robinson last night in a game that you desperately needed to hit threes because you couldn't hit any, then something's wrong there.
Okay, but who are you taking minutes away is my point.
Well, again, that's not my decision to make. That's Spo's. And so I go, okay, I want to see Duncan out there. I don't know how it's going to work, but I want to see Duncan out there. So I don't know. Max Strus? How many minutes did Max Strus have last night?
22 minutes.
22 minutes. Were those quality minutes? What did he shoot last night?
Didn't shoot well. 2 of 8.
2 of 8. Max Strus took your game winner shooting 2 of 8. I don't know. Half those 22 minutes, could they have been better spent by Duncan? I don't know.
To you, Gabe Vincent, 18 minutes, 0 points. Victor Oladipo, 32 minutes, 9 points. Caleb Martin, 30 minutes, 4 points. Zeller, 19 minutes, 3 points. Those people, those minutes just added up. Those are a lot of minutes. Duncan couldn't grab 10 of those minutes from somebody, Solana. And I'm not getting on you. I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of minutes. And that's my point.
Obviously, there's a lot of minutes without any points being put up. And so you need points. You need scoring last night. And I think Duncan can give you that in rapid fire. So, I just didn't get it.
By the way, I'm not even saying Hawk is totally wrong. I wanted to see Duncan yesterday, too. I just understand that maybe he was going to go to him late in the first quarter as he did against Atlanta. Bam's not in the game. Bam's in foul trouble. Well, we can't go to Duncan now. You already have Zeller on the floor. You have Kevin Love on the floor. You're going to put Duncan in with Gabe Vincent and Caleb Martin. Like, that's a tough defensive matchup to put your team in against a team that has guys that can go off at any moment.
Well,
like
put in Yurt. Go Yurt and Duncan. Go Yurt and Duncan.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds good until those two go minus 12 in 6 minutes again.
But they lost. That's my argument. Like, right, you keep going, but if you did this, they might lose. They lost.
But they lost yesterday not because Duncan didn't play. They lost because they turned the ball over the most times they've done all season, 24 times, and they gave up 29 points off those turnovers.
And so when you give up a lot of points off turnovers, what do you need in return? You need to match those points. You need to get those points back somehow. That's all I'm saying.
You know, but isn't this thing with Duncan a chicken and egg?
Yeah, 100%.
He needs to score more, but he's going to let up more points.
Right.
But if he's in the game, we can slow him down, but we can't score no damn points. And you know what? We might have answered it for Spo right now. Hawk, what does he value more, points or defense? And if you want to do that scale, he's going to outweigh it on the defense side.
I'm with you. It's just my point. The ultimate thing that he values is wins over losses. So for me, it's hard to argue that Duncan shouldn't have been out there last night because they ended up with an L. All the things that you're nervous about putting Duncan in because of didn't matter. They lost. Yeah. So, it bolsters my argument because I can pretend that they didn't lose. Like, maybe they lose by 18 with him out there. I don't know. I have no idea. All I know is I saw Duncan do in 17 minutes against Atlanta what you want him to do. I mean, it's exactly why he's there. For him not to get a minute last night, I thought was ridiculous. But regardless.
It's just funny, though, that and I'm not hating on Duncan. I told you. I would have liked to have seen him yesterday, too. But it is funny that he goes 4 or 5 over 2 games, and we're acting like he's prime Michael Jordan.
No, I'm not. Though.
I'm not down a couple open 3-pointers.
Agreed, but that's all you need him to do. I mean, that's honestly all you need him to do. Honestly, you need him to be in there for 12 minutes a game and knock down 3 threes. Like, that's all you need him to do. Do you think Duncan last night? Max Strus shoots 2 of 8 from 3. Or 2 of 8 from the field?
Overall, 2 of 8 from 3, 2 of 8 overall. All his shots were 3-pointers last night.
I mean, do you think Duncan, based on what you saw Saturday night, do you think Duncan, or Monday night, do you think Duncan goes 2 of 8 from 3? I don't. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
But that guy from the past, now I'm trying to look and see the guy you're talking about from the past, comes in, drops 9 to 12 points. But Hawk, just listen, hear me out. It was like the Jay Crowders, the who was it, Shane Battier's, those type guys. they did a lot more than just shoot. So if you look at them, they're all defensive guys that can hit a corner three if you leave them over there butt naked. That's who they were. You're asking Duncan to be a guy in Spo's mind, in his system. That's why I bring up guys of the past that he doesn't enjoy playing with. He doesn't like in his rotation a shooter that can't play defense because all his ex-shooters were defenders. Ray Allen could defend.
Then I hope Spo enjoys the play-in game. Okay, great. Because if he doesn't like it, they're going to end up the 7th seed. They lost last night. Like that. Like if I was making this argument and they had won, and I still came in and said Duncan didn't get any minutes. What's going on? Why didn't Duncan get any minutes? There'd be a lot more holes to poke in that argument. They lost.
They're within a point with a minute and change left. They have a chance to take the lead.
And guess who
Victor
ends up?
Oladipo is going isolation, chewing clock when you're losing and taking a step back three-pointer.
A terrible shot by Victor Oladipo, and then a terrible three from Max Strus, who was ice cold.
I don't know if that was a terrible three.
He was ice cold, though. It was a good look. I know what you're saying. It wasn't a terrible three. It was not the guy that I wanted shooting a three after that game that he had.
Agreed.